Welcome back to my channel. Recently I've been doing a series where I look at all the various convenience colors in my palette, and today we are on reds. So all of these convenience colors will start with PR as the first pigment number. I think this is the largest collection we've done so far. I think there's about 30 something colors in it. It's definitely not the largest one in my collection. That goes to blues, but it is a pretty large collection. So we're going to go through all of them. We're going to swatch them all out, and then I'm going to go through and see which ones, if I was rebuilding my palette from scratch, I would be repurchasing, because I definitely think there are some that if I was starting over, I probably wouldn't buy again. So let's label this page and then we'll get into it. Alright, the page is labeled, the colors are all pre-wet, so let's get into it. The first up is Cozmick's Plume, PR3, PB29. I love this purple. It's a great granulating purple. Then we have Cozmick's Ash Rose, which is PR3, PBK19. It's a lovely dusty pink when it dries. Then we have Rosa Gallery's Coral. I don't love this color. I find it very opaque and it dries a bit chalky. It's PR4, PR2, and PW6. I find the PW6 really is prominent and it does dry chalky. Holbein Violet Gray is a discontinued Holbein color, and it's PR88, PW6. I love PR88. It is a discontinued red. I have a quarter pan of it in my palette, and it's a stunning red pigment. Tri Art Transparent Gold Ochre is PR101, PY110. And it sort of reminds me of a more orangey Quin Gold. It is very pretty. I'm not sure I love the Tri Arts formula, but it is a pretty color. Sennelier Quin Gold is PR101, PY150, and PR206. The Sennelier colors are lovely. It's not my favorite Quin Gold, but I do really like their Quin Gold. And I like that it's a different pigment mix than most out there. Cozmick Creations Mossy Glen is PR101, PG26. And it's a nice brown that also has green granulation to it. Addison and Sedgwick's Ziza is PR101, PR3. This was part of the Cities of the World Volume 4 palette. So was Milliner, also by Addison and Sedgwick, which is PR101, PR112. As is Dutch Tulip, which is PR101, PR176. I absolutely love Dutch Tulip. It's such a nice, moody red. Let's see if I can get it a little bit more washed out at this end. Alright, I think I've taken care of the light that keeps threatening to flicker. Next up is Gouda, also by Addison and Sedgwick, PR102, PY42, PY150. I love this yellow. It's such a bright, sunny yellow. I wish I used it more often. I often find it too bright for what I'm doing, but it is an absolutely stunning yellow. Addison and Sedgwick's Harpsichord is PR102, PY174, and PY43. It's a very pretty light yellow. These were all part of the same palette, which was Cities of the World 4. And I do think they all go quite nicely together. Roman Small's Quinacridone Gold Hue is my least favorite Quin Gold. because I find that it sort of dries this like electric yellow, and it looks so different than any Quin Golds that I have in my palette. It's PR102, PY150. Then we have White Nights Mocha, PR102, PV55, and PW6. This was part of their Pastels palette. I think I've got most of the palette. I think I'm only missing 3 or 4 colors in it. They were some of the first colors I added to my palette actually when I was creating my professional watercolor palette back in 2020. Martian Earth from Beyond Indigo is PR101, sorry, PR102, PR101, PB30, and PG23. I do love how moody this red is. It's absolutely stunning. Then we have Cospaint's Amaranthus. Love this purple. It's PR102, PR259. It's so nicely moody. I do love how moody Courtney's paints are. They're stunning. Pearl Gray by White Nights is PR102, PBK7, and PW6. So it's a very opaque, pale gray. Then we have Sepia by White Nights, PR107, PR187, and PBK7. For a long time, this was one of the only browns I had in my palette, and I absolutely love it. Schmincke Desert Green is PR108, PG26. I struggle with this pigment. We have it in a tube, and I have some of it in a pan in my palette. I never use it. I can never figure out where to use it. Yeah, it's just like I can never figure out where to use it. Rosa Gallery's Cobalt Gray is probably one of my favorite colors from Rosa Galleries. I like their black series and their gray series. It is PR108, PB28, and PBK7. Cobalt Gray is so nicely moody, and it is just so pretty. Especially once it's dry. Schmincke Volcano Brown was one of my very first Schmincke super granulating colors, and I do really like it. It's PR108 and PBK11. It's pretty easy to mix yourself, but it is really pretty with the pockets of red in it. Rosa Gallery's Magenta Gray is so much fun. I love like the hot pink with the moody undertones. It is PR122 and PG17, which I think is a pretty interesting mix because you're mixing quinacridone magenta and chromium green oxide, which I wouldn't think to mix together, but in this application it works quite well. White Nights Pink Peony is PR122 and PW6. This was, I believe, the very first White Nights color I ever got, and was one of the very first professional colors I ever added to my watercolor palette. Alright, this sheet's full, and so we are going to switch sheets because there are still some colors to go. Alright, sheet number 2. We have Izzy Warm Safina. It is PR102, PW6. I do find it really interesting that both White Nights Pink Peony and this color are the same pigments, and they look totally different. Swift Violet by Izzy's Watercolors is PR122, PW6, and PB15, which then gives you a purple. We have Cosmic Creations Pebble, which is my favorite gray of all the grays in my palette. This one's my favorite. it is PR170, PG8, PB29, PY74, and PV14. This is not a color that I would mix myself ever. It is so hard to mix yourself, but is such a fun one. White Knight's Rose Quartz is PR170, PW6. Then we have Daniel Smith Permanent Alizarian Crimson. Alizarian Crimson is my favorite red. So it's PR177, PB19, and PR149. I do prefer the non-light fast version, so the PR83 to the permanent version, but I did try the Daniel Smith permanent version. We have Addison and Sedgwick's Lees, which is PR177, PR101. This color reminds me a lot of Dutch Tulip, though the pigment numbers are pretty different. But it's still like a nicely moody dark red. We have Holbein Crimson Lake, PR177, PR122, and PV19. I love Crimson Lake. I use it all the time in my mini Holbein palette. And I think it's just a really great, like, magenta-y color. We have White Knight's Neutral Black, which is PR187, PB15.1, and PBK7. I think this was their attempt at like Daniel Smith Neutral Tint. It leans much more blue than Daniel Smith Neutral Tint. I do still like it though, whereas I don't really like Payne's Gray. I think I'd have this in a palette instead of Payne's Gray. We have Cozmick Creations Shadow Rose, one of my favorite paints from Laura, PR233 and PB29. And this was, I think, the very first granulating paint Laura launched, and it is absolutely stunning. We have White Knight's Coral, PR242 and PW6. And then we have Daler and Rowney Cadmium Red Deep Hue, which is PR264 and PR244. Alright, we're going to let these pages dry, and then we'll go through them all and figure out which ones I'd keep if I was rebuilding this palette from scratch. Alright, let's go through this sheet. So, Cos, Plume, I like the little pockets of blue that are peeking out. Fantastic color. Cos paints Ash Rose. There are other moody pinks that I like more. I do really like it, but if I was rebuilding this entire palette from scratch, it wouldn't be the first one I picked up. Rosa Gallery's Coral. I would do Daniel Smith Quin Coral before I did this, purely because I don't like the formulation very much. I bought a couple pans of Rosa Galleries just to see if I like the formula, and I really don't. Plus, I find this too opaque for a lot of uses. Holbein Violet Gray. I wish I could find a tube of this paint. I absolutely love it. I only have a very tiny pan of it, but it's fantastic. Tri Arts Transparent Gold Ochre. I actually like this color. I go back and forth on it. It's not super expensive for a 5mm tube. I think it's like $4. And I think it's totally worth it if you want to try it. Their formulation is stickier than most brands. Like, you have to let it dry down in a pan, otherwise it's just too sticky to work with. But I do really like it. It's like a fun, like, burnt orange without actually containing Quin burnt orange, which I think is a good thing because that pigment may become harder to find. No one's quite sure yet. Sennelier, Quinacridone Gold, and Holbein Roman Smalls Quin Gold Hue. There are other quins I like more. I do like that this one does not contain the Quin Burnt Orange, again, because people are saying it might become harder to find. So I do like that I have an option I like that doesn't contain that pigment. That being said, if I was rebuilding this palette totally from scratch, I would try and get the quins I like more first, knowing that this is still going to be an option. Cozmick Creations Mossy Glen, I like as my base layer for rocks, or to glaze over top of rocks, because it just got such a fun granulation, so I would probably add back into my palette. Out of all of these, Addison and Sedgwick, Dutch Tulip, and maybe Gouda. They all came as a set. I got her advent calendar, so it was a mystery paint every day, which I did really enjoy as an advent calendar. I use all the paints. It was super fun to open a new paint every day. That being said, there are some colors that I just didn't need for my palette, and so I've only done it that 1 year. White Nights Mocha. I like parts of it. Like, I like having like a muted, sandy, light skin tone color. Other than that, though, like, it mostly just gets used as like a base color before I go in and layer other colors on top. So I would probably hold off getting it because it's not essential to what I do. Beyond Indigo, Martian Earth. I love her paints. I need to get more of them because they're great. Cos Paints Amaranthus. I really like this color. It's super fun. Oh, my hand's super shaky. But I don't know with what I saved in the single pigments that I absolutely need it if I was rebuilding this palette from scratch. That being said, I do really like it. White Nights Pearl Gray. I do really like as a gray. There are some grays from 31 Purple Fish that I like more, but she doesn't list her pigment numbers, so I didn't include them in this series. White Nights Sepia. For a long time, this was one of 4 browns in my entire watercolor palette. I love this color. I've not found a brown that I use nearly as much as this brown. It's fantastic. Schmincke Desert Green. Would not get again. Mom got them and as tubes, and I decanted about 1/8 of a pan into half pans for myself, just so that I had them in my palette and could use them if I wanted to use them. And I would say this one's the one that gets used the least. Cobalt Gray from Rosa Galleries. Love this color. This color and this color make me forgive the fact that I hate the Rosa Galleries formulation, because they're so much fun. I love the granulation. I love the moodiness and the granulation. Like, they're fabulous. Schmincke Volcano Brown. You can totally mix this yourself, but I do love this brown. White Nights Pink Peony. At the time I purchased this, I loved them. I really like the White Nights pastel colors, and I still like them. Do I use them as much as I once did? No. Would I repurchase them automatically? No. But if you're a pastels person and you can find these on the secondhand market, you really can't go wrong with them. They are super fun as pastels. And then we have Izzy's Watercolor Warm Safina and Swift Violet. These are no longer available. So even if I lost my palette tomorrow, like, I couldn't repurchase them because they were part of a collection like 2 years ago. So I do like Swift Violet though. I like sort of the texture of it. I don't use Warm Safina enough to justify repurchasing it. Cozmick Creations Pebble. I love this. It's swatched out really weird on this paper, but I used it for my tone-on-tone boat piece. That was a paint your style, like almost a year ago. White Nights Rose Quartz and White Nights Coral, same as White Nights Pink Peony. Loved it when I got them. Still use them, but not enough to justify actually repurchasing them, but they are some of the best pastel paints on the market. Daniel Smith Permanent Alizarian Crimson. I prefer the genuine version that's not light fast, or not like light fast for 100 years, whatever it is. And none of my work gets displayed other than in sketchbooks, and so to me light fast doesn't really matter because none of it's being seen in sunlight. Addison and Sedgwick's Lees, love this color. Love the moodiness, love the granulation. Holbein Crimson Lake, love this color. White Nights Neutral Black reminds me of Neutral Tint so much, but is the blue version, whereas Neutral Tint's got like more of a purpley undertone. Absolutely love it. Shadow Rose by Cozmick Creations. I love this color. It is fantastic. I use it all the time, specifically in like sunsets and stuff. It's fantastic. It's so much fun, and I'm really happy that Laura branched out into granulated colors. Daler and Rowney Cadmium Red Deep Hue, would not repurchase. There are other reds I like more. I also don't really like cadmium reds, and know that this does not look like any cadmium red. Cadmium reds have way more granulation and stuff, and this is just wrong. It has the wrong granulation pattern for a cadmium red deep. So I would not repurchase this. Also, the formula is really sticky. You have to let it dry down in pans, and even then, it takes forever to dry down. This has been in a pan for like 3 years and is still incredibly sticky. If I touch it with my finger, even if it wasn't wet, it would stick to my finger. So, not my favorite. I hope you enjoyed this part of the convenience color series. Let me know if you've got a favorite convenience color that includes a red pigment that I don't have in my palette, because there have been some great suggestions so far, and I'm always looking at testing out new things. So thanks for watching, and if you like this video, please like and subscribe.